chapter 5, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Chapter 5. Okay, chapter 5 is a very important chapter. It explains the inyanim of what the thing is from Chachma and what the thing is from Bina, and how the two things work together when you're studying Chassidus. And also, this chapter, when you study the chapters like from, 25 onwards, the Yichud Avah, this really belongs over there also. והנה אחר שנתבואר שצריך להתבונן דרך פרט דווקא, הרי מן הכרח לידע כל פרט לחילוק המדרגות וכל פרט לסדר ההשתלשלות דבייה להתבונן בהם אשר אינם מובנים לכל מכלל התרס כולו. So, he's telling you now that we said you have to be misplaining in total particular thing and know all the different details, so that's what you have to know. And he's telling you that really this is not available anywhere else. In other words, when he's saying Mikol Klal HaTorah, it means like in Eitz Chaim or whatever, certainly not from the Zohar and from the Sefer Yetzirah and things like that, and even from the works of the Arizal. It's not easy. It's not possible to understand what they're talking about. That's what he's telling you. So what's the solution? He says V'yivorim kulam bekuntis miyuchad. Now you have to go like with the Megillah,
Right.
You know the Megillah, when you say this letter, and you go like that, you shake the Megillah. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
When you read the Megillah, you say Haigeres Hashenis Hazois.
Oh, right.
And you shake the Megillah to say that this is the Igeres that they're talking about. So when you say bekuntis miyuchad, you have to shake this book to show that this is the book that we're talking about.
Right.
Min hatzarech mikol prat. So uvimele yuvan lamei miyodea kama pratim acherim. So what he's giving you here is a promise that he's going to explain to you everything. Everything is explained in this book. And you say, what do you mean? It's not totally everything. He says, what I'm explaining to you, I'm explaining you what you need from every prat. And when you understand it good, you'll automatically understand all the pratim, everything. You'll understand everything.
Right.
So that's a very big promise over here. He's basically telling you that he's going to explain the whole Kabbalah and Chassidus to you in this book. With all the particulars, everything you need to know to be able to do what he said in chapter 4. Okay, so that's the promise. He says, but before we get to that, which that's going to start in chapters 7 through the end of the book, so he told us what the Hitbonenut is about, what Hitbonenut is, and then what it's about, the Seder Hishtalshelut, and then he explained to us that it has to be done in a particular way. Now he's going to explain to us the echus, the how to do it. There's a certain way that it has to be done. Gam b'derech prat, od inyan echad tzarech b'yesel l'kol ha'chovetz b'emes v'kirbas elokim v'ena redze latzis yedei chayvasa lahasis es atzmo. If you want to really study it properly without fooling yourself, or just to be yotzeh that, I learned the sikha today.
Right.
V'hu b'yos yadua shebekol Hitbonenut v'inyan eloki b'ishavus yesh me'em b'kol makam lafi mashahu. Any kind of Hitbonenut means wherever you learn Chassidus, no matter what it is. Shehu hari kolel beis inyan ha'echad b'chinat bitul hayesh la'ein shezeu asagas erech habal. What is Abal Gvul Tchila Be'echus Oiven Hishavus Mitzvus Me'ein Chulu Shezeh Korah V'lasech B'yeser Al Yidei Kama Esper V'Nyaz Mashol Kahai Gavna Ad Shenitamit V'Monach Heitev. In other words, one thing is how the something comes out of the nothing, and that is possible to understand with a total understanding through all the Esberim and the Myonis Mashol.
Right.
The Lashon Yiddish, leg zich in moyach zev. It lies real good in the brain. This is something that can be explained until it mamish lies good in your brain. והבייס, עניין בחינוס האין האלוקי המהווה עשוי, ואיכשהו נבדל בערך ליוסו בלתי בעל גבול, הולו. The other thing is to understand that when you're learning how it comes into being, there is the inyan of where it's coming into being from, which is the Ein Eloki, which is totally infinite. And by infinite, really it doesn't even mean infinite like most people think, like infinite number or something like that. It means totally infinite. It's totally undefined. This is not really to be understood in a total asaga. Rak mikol mokam yuvrak mobarak b'schira ba'alma b'meichai amisa sinyano. Remember, yuvrak mobarak is the inyan of Chochmah. The first one,
Right.
as he said, ba'asaga gmura is the inyan of Bina. And at the same time, you should have like a flash of what it's really talking about.
Right.
In other words, that even though the explanation can't really tell you really what you're talking about, there should be a flash of Chochmah into what it really is. K'meishahu, how it really is. Avalu b'pchinas ha'helam, but it's in a way of a helam. Ki'ilu nit'amis ha'davar b'rir ha'chushiyas. Like as if this thing became real to him in a physical way of seeing. In other words, the mental seeing is like a physical seeing. Like, for instance, like with an airplane. There's two things. There's one thing that I could explain to you. To somebody who never heard of an airplane, you could explain to them the whole inyanim of an airplane and aerodynamics and the mathematics of it until they can understand that, this thing could work. Like the Wright brothers, for instance. There never was an airplane. And yet they figured, hey, let's, according to aerodynamics, and look, birds can fly and stuff like that, so that we can make an airplane work. But then there's an Indian of somebody that you didn't understand nothing to, you didn't explain nothing to him, but he saw an airplane fly.
Right.
So, a guy like that, you couldn't even convince that there can't be such a thing as an airplane.
Right.
Because he saw it. You said, what do you mean there's no such thing as an airplane? I saw it. A guy who saw it, you can't, like a guy who explained it, like even let's say somebody who has all the explanations, but I can give you, let's say, better explanations that it's not possible, and you can convince them that it's not possible. But somebody who saw an airplane fly, there's no way to convince him out of it.
Right.
So in a way, this thing of the Barak, even though it's in the B'chinas HaHelam, it's not really an explanation, and he doesn't really know the pratim. In a way, it's a stronger hitamtus than the explanation. The same like with airplane. The guy who saw the airplane, there's no way you can convince him that there's no such thing as an airplane.
Right.
So ben re'iyah the chokhmah koyach ma'asha b'nefesh ro'yeh v'lo b'riyah chushiyas kim riyah sichlias. We're talking about he sees with his mind's eye. B'havraka l'mala min hasaga. He sees a flash of the thing. L'mala min hasaga gmur. Not really in a way of hopping in an explanation. V'al ken ha'it pilus mizeh en arak pinas habitul. Is in a way of a nullification to the idea. That it means that the basic thing of the Hitbonenut and the Chokhmah is the lack of feeling of himself.
Right.
Beloshen Yiddish, wird zurir tun ort, ve'ena margish gam ze gufa. He's totally removed from feeling, and even this he doesn't feel.
Right.
In other words, he doesn't even feel that he's not feeling it. Why? Because when he has the flash, all he's feeling is the flash. And he's not feeling himself, and he doesn't even realize that he doesn't feel himself.
Right.
And that's the sign of the flash of Chokhmah. So that's the difference. Bain, like it said before, it says, Vua Hefers, like a few lines back. Vua Hefers, Ben Bechin is Riyah de Chochma, and now it goes, Ubein Bechin Shmiyah de Bina.
Right.
Sheba Ba'asoga Gmura Mamish, meaning that the Hasoga into the Masholim and into the stuff is Mamish and Hasoga, that actually you know what Hasoga means? Hasoga means like from Masik Gvul. You know what a Masik Gvul is?
Right.
That he moves the fence into the other guy's property.
Right.
Means that he actually goes into the other guy's property. And this is what it means, Hasoga, that your mind actually goes into the actual reshus of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The Hasoga Gmura Mamish, Shuhu be'echus hishabus hayesh me'en kanal, that it is in how the something comes out from the nothing, like with the various ideas of how the various Elamas Biyah come out of Malchus Vatzilus and also the Indian of Yehudai Law. Shaypalus mizeh u'asimcha b'murgash v'toiv lev, which the Hitbonenut from this is exactly the opposite. It's not that he doesn't feel himself, just the opposite. He does feel himself more and more. The kol shemasig yeser toivloi. The more he understands, the happier he is.
Right.
The Lashon Yiddish, as is very good umachayel nefesh. A real good thing and a real machaya for him.
Right.
Mamish machaya. Says, wow, I mean, I'm getting such big hasagas, and I'm mamish growing and growing with this thing, and he feels that he's getting bigger. He actually feels it. He actually feels it's a good thing for him, and he's getting bigger. The kol shemaimik yeser yasig, yeser masig. And the more that he looks deeper into it, he understands more. He hops more.
Right.
And the Riyah of Chochma is exactly the opposite. Kol sheyamik yeser yipal mimena. The more he looks into it, the farther away it is.
Right.
So that somebody who doesn't know Chassidus at all says, when he says the Eibishter, he thinks that we live on the first floor and the Eibishter lives on the second floor.
Right.
When somebody learns a little bit more, he says, well, the Eibishter lives on the 10th floor.
Right.
Then it becomes like the Empire State Building. Then he says, well, no, it's like in the clouds.
Right.
And then afterwards he says, no, it's like all the way up to the moon.
Right.
Each time it goes farther and farther away. The more he looks into it, the farther and farther, like the idea that somebody who didn't learn Chassidus, how far he thinks the Eibishter is from him, they almost think that it's like almost, the Eibishter is almost like a physical thing almost.
Right.
But like a spiritual physical thing, like made out of air or something,
Right.
So that we're made out of lead and the Eibishter is made out of helium or something like that, It's almost like that. Whereas the more you learn Chassidus, the more you see that it's like totally, totally beyond. And this thing that is totally beyond is even Malchus of Asiya.
Right.
Never mind like higher levels. And the more he's maimik, yeter yipal imeno, mahu is prinas ha'ein, ha'elokiya mahave, the actual, what it is, not the Metzius. In other words, the Metzius is knowing what the various relationships are. But what it really is, it goes farther and farther away.
Right.
Hulu ba'flos ha'erach yeser v'yeser, ad sheyitztayer v'yidak hulu. Like till he's finally, mamish makes him sad and he worries that it's going farther and farther away. How will I ever understand this at all? How will I have a connection to this?
Right.
Moshe Vorbach Sovim. Ulafi zeh harebe kol ma'ayim b'derech kla b'derech prat. Anybody who learns properly in the derech prat, like what he explains in chapter 4, yavo l'klal beis inyonim mahela b'Hitbonenut behelam b'gilui b'Hitbonenut anoilad, in terms of the helem of the thing and the gilui of the thing, meaning the helem of the ein hamahave and the gilui of the yesh hamisave.
Right.
And the pilus hanoilad, the pilus that he should get out of it, beis hafochim.
Right.
Simultaneously. Ham Liba doyeg bekirboy al oitzem haflos ha'asoga ba'ein eloki hamahave, which gives him a feeling of nothingness, that he's like a total nothing. And this is where the true humility comes from, not from mustering yourself out, you know.
Right.
The real true humility is not that you think that, oh, I am not so great like Einstein. That's not such a true humility. That's like, you know, like you're saying, well, I'm not so tall like Magic Johnson.
Right.
Yeah, but there's some kind of an error.
Right.
Like a guy that saw Oig Melech HaBashan, and they tell him, hey, we're going to the circus to see a giant. And they go to the circus, and they show him a guy that's 10 feet tall. And they say, here, look at the giant. And he says, that's a giant? Because he's used to Oig Melech HaBashan that can lift up a mountain.
Right.
He's used to a giant is like 1,000 feet tall or something like that. And Moshe Rabbeinu was what? 18 feet tall, and he jumped 18 feet up in the air, and his sword was 18 feet. That means 54 feet. And he hit the guy in the ankle.
Right.
His ankle was 54 feet up. And here they're showing him a guy with 10 feet tall, you know, so he said, that's a giant. So this is the same thing over here as far as the more he understands, the more he is bottle.
Right.
And the more it's oitzema flaw, the bigger the giant gets. Before he thought it's a 10-foot giant. Now he sees, wait a minute, if you jump 50 feet up in the air, you're just going to hit his ankle.
Right.
So liba doeg bekirbo al oitzem haflod ha'asoga be'eina lokia mahavechulu. So that's the two inyanim. One, that he mamish worries about how far this thing is away from him. And the second thing, at the same time, he is very happy from what he understood and how there's something comes out of the nothing.
Right.
Small derech dogma, am izboinen b'derech prat b'ithavus hagalgol me'ein eloki she'im mipchinas kelim chitzoni the malchus da'asiyah. You notice here he's talking about dafka, the lowest thing.
Right.
That mom is something that you can see. That you look around and you see the sun and the moon and the stars are going around the earth, and the earth is also a big ball going around and around. And how this comes out from the kelim chitzonim, the malchus asiyah, shehu rak mepchinas keli chitzonius ha'ara dehara levad. Ameir b'nefesh al zeh agalgal b'asagosa b'mahavia, you see? Valderach zeh, and the same thing, gamba malachim the bria the im mekan nachulu, that the malachim of bria have an understanding in the bina, which is the sky above them.
Right.
Masigim koyach haloki the malchus the atzilus chula mahaveisam. They have a soga in the koyach haloki of malchus atzilus that is mahaveisam. So he gave you here another thing. You notice that, you know, everybody says there's Yehuda Eloah and Yehuda Gata'ah. Really, in Yehuda Gata'ah, there's another one. This physical world, how it comes out of Malchus of Asiyah. Then there's the Biyah that comes out of Malchus of Atzilus. And then there's Atzilus that comes out of Malchus of Ein Sof.
Right.
This is understood in the actual Hasoga. But look, that the whole universe is so big and so gigantic with these stars. Each star is like it's a gigantic atomic explosion. And all that power of the entire universe is like nothing compared to what Malchus of Asiyah is.
Right.
The Sivuvam, Chulu. Aval Prinas Ha'ein Eloki, the Malchus Asiyah Mahaveisam. Really, what is Malchus of Asiyah really? Nela Mahusa Ma'asaga, what it actually is, we understand the relationship of the world to it. the Metzius.
Right.
But the actual Mahus Nela Min HaSaga. Raksha Mimele, Hu Mukhrach Ba'Saga. He has to, it's not that he actually understands what it is, it's just that the mind, the logic dictates that it must be like that.
Right.
Logic dictates that if the whole universe is so big and so strong that even the sun, and like just imagine what an explosion is and what an atomic explosion is, and the sun is a gigantic atomic explosion with such amazing amounts of power, and the sun is just a tiny little dot in terms of the whole universe.
Right.
And also the amount of power for all those stars to actually go around and around. You know, there's fantastic amounts of powers involved over there.
Right.
And all of that is coming from Malchus of Malchus Asiyah, so the mind is mechayev. What an amazing thing Malchus of Asiyah must be.
Right.
But not that he actually understands really what it is.
Right.
It's just a mukhrach ba'asaga. Achar him ahis amtus oifen ha'inyan shel hitzhabus hayesh, after he goes through the explanation, and it's mitamet to him how the yesh of the Galgolim is mishave from Malchus of Asiyah, and not even Malchus of Asiyah, but really from just the end of the Hecholos of Malchus of Asiyah.
Right.
Nishmar Oifnim. So then, if once he understands the Hishabus Hayesh from there, so he says, so wow, what it must be.
Right.
It's a mukhrach ba'asaga. It's just his mind dictates that if this is only this little bit that comes from what comes out from it, imagine what it is.
Right.
Okay, ub'bchinas hahelam levadu musag. But it's really only understood as a mukhrach ba'asaga in a way of a helam, not that he actually gets it.
Right.
Uba'afwa be'erach nivdal dafka, and a total just an amazement.
Right.
The Hitbonenut is like the Hitbonenut from understanding how the whole thing, and you think the Galgolim, and this goes around this, and that goes around that, etc., that he understands. But the actual thing that, and from that he gets simcha, but from thinking about what the actual Malchus of Malchus Asiyah is, what he gets is a wow.
Right.
A wow means an amazement, a flaw.
A pele, right.
A pele. Wow, what a pele, what it has to be, just, I can't even imagine. Means really, it's not that imagine what it is, really the power says, I can't even imagine. Means it's totally mufla from him, totally removed from him.
Right.
And so it's Musa ba'afla erech nivdal dafka, how separate it is. V'kachu be'isbonet pratius ba'atzilus ba'eres v'kelim, K'mei ba'atzilus or chesed shebemalchus, ba'atzilus or chesed shebechochma, that he understands the relationships. Ve'ech shenetzo, how it comes out in Atzilus, Yusag al derech dimyon, v'kai gavna. Wait, no, sir. Yusag al derech dimyon ma'ora netzo, lemata begilui mehela ma'atzmus. He understands it, and again, it's not that he actually understands what really the Atzilus is. He understands the relationships of the Atzilus according to the Masholim down here. It's the same thing like how Moshe was matzil from his ruach on this Kenim, but not that nothing was lost to Moshe.
Right.
And the various other Masholim. B'yusa gamken be'inyan hishavus midas da'atzilus. So this also can be understood in Hasaga, in the Indian of the Savus of the Midas of Atzilus, Gam Shehem Pchinas Mekariyim Nivdalim, Mina Ashpoa Lokis Banivroim, even though they're really Mekariyim, which are really totally different from the actual Hashpoa Lokus into the Biyah. That really the actual Midas of Atzilus have nothing to do with Biyah.
Right.
Even though they're Mekoyriim to Biyah, but really they're totally Nivdolim from Biyah, and it's only from Malchus and Malchus to Atzilus, not even from Malchus of Atzilus, that comes out the whole thing of Biyah. And he can understand this Inyan, how the Midas of Atzilus are really Mekarim Nivdolim. Hulu, Aval Prinas Ein Ha'amiti Ha'meir Aleim Me'er Atzmus HaMatzilam Lo Yusak Abedimian Sechel. That cannot even be understood with a Dimian.
Right.
Im Behelam Lavad. Just in a way of a Helam, like we said before, it's a Mukhrach HaSaga. You have to say that it must be so.
Right.
And that's the thing, that the Seichel sees that there's something that's higher than the actual understanding. In other words, in the understanding, there's two things, in any level, in understanding in Chassidus. One thing is that you understand the actual explanation into the Ishabus Hayesh Min Ha'ein. And the other thing is that simultaneously you see that there's something that's totally higher than the understanding over here.
Right.
And it has to be simultaneous. If you don't understand, if you think that you're really getting it, and this is what the thing is, you know, if you look in the Hakdama State Chaim, what he says there, and this is in many Kabbalistic books and Chassidic books, what they tell you is if you think that you actually understand, then you don't understand.
Right.
So you say, what do you mean? I understand. Like over here, especially in this book, where maybe it's Chaim is not so easy to understand, but look over here, we understand. He says, yeah, you understand the explanation. And you understand this Havus Hayesh Min Ha'ein. But at the same time, it's not that you should not understand, just the opposite. You should understand that there's something that's beyond the understanding.
Right.
And if you don't get that, you lost the whole point.
Right.
It means that even the stuff that you understand, you're not understanding properly because you didn't understand. You did not understand the explanation properly because it didn't point you to the part that's beyond the understanding, the Mukhrach HaSaga.
Right.
In other words, you didn't get how fantastically removed from you Malchus and Malchus Vasiya is. Then you really didn't understand the Indian of how something came out from the nothing.
I need to flip the tape, Yossi.
Yeah, go ahead. So Kamaimer leis machshava tfisa b'chlal. Shahu machshava debina. That means the machshava of understanding. The machshava of the asaga of the explanations is not really teifes at all in the actual mouth of the thing. The hainu shezeh hefech hasaga. This is the opposite of the hasaga.
Right.
This thing of Chokhmah, the Riyah of Chokhmah, is the exact opposite of Hasaga. Tikol shemaimik yaser muflah himeno. The more that he learns and the more that he thinks deeply into it, the more the thing is amazingly far from him.
Right.
Atzmus or hamasil, the actual selfness of the light of the Eibishter. Kul v'asiman lezeh. And the siman from this is that there's this fantastic humility, that the actual humility is not that he's humble in relationship to the 10 feet tall guy. Yeah, it's not that he's humble in relationship to the 10 feet tall guy, but then when he realized what a real Anak is, like Melech HaBashan, then he says, wow, I mean, there's no way I'm going to go up against him. Like even Moshe Rabbeinu, the only way he went up against him is because the Eibusher promised him that he's going to help him.
Right.
Moshe was worried when he saw Melech HaBashan. He said, wait a minute. He said, whoa, dude, this guy is, picking up mountains and throwing them at us. How are we going to fight him? So it's an Indian of total bittul and humility. And this is where the real humility comes from, not from what most people think humility is, because of what most people think humility is like basically you're humble that you're 5 feet tall and the other guy is 10 feet tall.
Right.
Over here it's like a totally shalom be'er. You say, wait a minute, like I'm total nothing. I'm not even an inch tall.
Right.
I'm like nothing. The whole universe with the suns and everything like that is nothing, never mind to the light of the Matzil, to Malchus of Asiya.
Right.
So what do I have to talk about? So from this will come the bittul b'yeser, means that then, and dafka this is the real humility, where what people think humbleness is really shiflus, which really is not supposed to be a shuffle.
Right.
So that it's not, they think that you should think that, oh, I'm not such a big shot, I don't understand so good. I said, no, it's just the opposite. He is a big shot. He got the Asoga of Bina. And he knows that he got the Asoga of Bina, and he's very happy from it, and he knows it's good for him, and he knows that he got it. But when it's in comparison of the actual afloa, then it makes no difference how big he is. It's still nothing.
Right.
ונמצא בחינת הביטול והשמחה שמסתעפים ונוילד מחוכמה בינה שבכל פרט בהכרח שבו הם כאחד דווקא. They come simultaneously. And if they don't come simultaneously, that means you're not studying Chassidus properly.
Right.
And this is basically what you see with a lot of these Kabbalists, that there's either one or the other. Either there's a thing of their understanding and they're getting to be real big shots, and they think they're really something now.
Right.
Or else they don't want to understand nothing and they just want to have some kind of a sense of flaw and humility, but it's not a real humility because since there's no hasoga, so there's no flaw either.
Right.
There's no real flaw. It's not a real humility. It's a false humility. Shemaim ke'echad dafka b'kol Hitbonenut b'kol prat dafka, kol prat to prat dafka. Any Hitbonenut should go through this whole book goes in both of these things. V'ha b'ha talya, and one depends on the other. It means if you don't get one, you don't have the other either. Ve'im lo hasimcha b'yesh ha'asoga b'taiv lo yavolaf lo v'richok ha'asoga b'ein. If he doesn't have the understanding in the yesh, that means that he doesn't really have the flaw in the ain. And if he tells you that he does, he says, oh, I just have that flaw. I believe in God and I'm a humble guy. I'm a simple little guy. I don't need all of this understanding. He says, hey, how could you be a simple little guy? You don't have the understanding. That means you don't have that flaw and you're not really a humble guy. You're really a balgaiva.
Right.
You think you're something. He said, what do you mean? I don't think I'm something. He said, yes, you do. Even if a little tiny thing you think you are, because you don't have the Hasoga of Bina, so that means you're a Balgaiva.
Right.
And at the same time, Ulafi erech hasimcha, kach erech habitul mamish, according to how happy he is and what a great big shot he realizes becoming, that he's mamish becoming a master of Razi the Rosen, literally. That's how much the bittul is. That's how much he'll get humble also.
Right.
Exactly according to his hasoga in his chavus hayesh, that's exactly the erech haflaw in how fantastically above us the Eibishter is.
Right.
Vezehu klal gadol. This is not just that I'm telling you something that this is just a by the way. This is a klal gadol. This is a general principle. You know, like v'ahavta l'reich kamocha, zeh klal gadol b'Torah.
Right.
Because this is the central klal of the whole Chassidus. B'kol Hitbonenut, in terms of Hitbonenut, zeh klal gadol. B'kol Hitbonenut b'prat v'klal, ma she'enken mi she'nidme lo she'toifes heitev ha'ishavus ve'en lo b'chinat bittul mitzaz ha'mahave lo hisiklum b'vadai, bli sofek. If you don't see any bittul there, then that means he didn't understand nothing. And he says it, b'vadai bli sofek. Umi sheyidme lo b'chinas habitul ba'atzmai mitzad ha'floas erech ha'mahus, somebody who thinks, well, I'm just having bittul because I think of the greatness of God. The lo hesig b'ki toiv lo ifna mishaven, he does not know the inyanim of Seder Hishtalshelut. Dimyan shavhu. It's just false imaginations. The ein lo b'chinat bitul klal, and he's not humble at all. He's not a humble guy. Iha beha talya. One depends on the other. L'fi erech davka, and it's exactly according to the erech. It's commensurate. Is that what you call it? Commensurate, right?
Right.
Davka.
Right.
Means according to how much you understand in the Chassidus, that's how humble you are. And according to how bartled you are, that's how much you understand in the Chassidus.
Right. The direct proportion to each other.
Direct proportion to each other. And as is known to anybody who's a Toyam Tam B'Yisbeinus Be'emes, and they don't fool themselves, and this is understood to anybody who knows Chassidus from his young age. And many people make a whole big toast in themselves. They think that they know Chassidus and they think that they're humble. They come in all kinds of different ways. It's not, the humility is not what they think is shiftless, like what it explains about Moshe Rabbeinu, that he was the most humble person there was. And yet you see in various places he acted like a king. And if they didn't listen to him, he got mad. You know, what kind of humility is this? Yeah, because he was comparing himself with Eibishter. It's not that he didn't know his level, just the opposite. It says, what he says here is just the opposite. If you're not a big shot in Chassidus, you're not a simple guy.
Right.
You can't call yourself an idiot like Passi Yamin called Dover. I'm just a little nothing that just believes in God. He says, no, you're not, because you don't know the Chassidus. So how can you be a little nothing that just believes in God?
Right.
Because how Baha tell you? So, and by the way, this also fits in the Inyanim later on of, this is basically the Simcha of Bina and the Bittul of Chochmah.
Right.
And this belongs with the chapters on Yichud Avah. That the Yichud Avah, that the Yichud Avah is constant.
Right.
You know, train, rain, the Lomit Parshin. Two friends that never leave each other. They can't be,
Can't have one without the other.
They can't have one without the other. It means if you don't have Bina, you don't have Chochmah. If you don't have Chochmah, you don't have Bina. You can't have just the Inyan of Bina of understanding into it, and you can't have an Inyan of just a Bittul of Chochmah.
Right.
Like what these idiots are saying about, just blank out your mind.
Right.
And that's Chochmah. No, there can't be Chochmah. Because there ain't no Chochmah without Bina. Ha b'ha talya.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, sei gesund.
Bye. You well.
Bye. Hatzlacha Rabba. Bye.
Bye.